Today I will be showing you how to use low-tech assistive technology in an early childhood classroom. One of the first tools that can be used to adapt or modify assignments would be markers or highlighters. There's a number of ways that you could utilize these in the classroom. One of the ways that I'm going to show today would be a way to really support your students with visual impairments or maybe even learning disabilities and intellectual disabilities. So instead of giving a student a paper that had, a shape and saying, okay, cut on the dotted line, you might want to trace around or highlight the outer perimeter for the student. That way they know exactly where they're supposed to cut, and it gives them a better view of this by highlighting it. That also would help just really any student that may be learning what that means to cut on a dotted line. Another way you could use markers is during an activity like this. This could be used for, again, students with delays, learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and visual impairments. So instead of having the students recall from the story, which may be a harder task, you would already have the assignment programmed by tracing around the outside edge of the object. And then you could give your students a choice between two colors and say you're just working on the blueberries first. You could say, okay, where's blue? Or match. And then hopefully they would select the blue and then be able to color in their blueberries. And then same thing for the shoes. So that's how I would use, or some of the ways you can use, markers in the early childhood classroom as an adaptation. Another thing you could use is simply paper. So as you can see, I folded this paper in half. So that's one way that you could limit the view for students that have ADHD. This may help them to not become overwhelmed by the assignment, and it really chunks it so that they have they just have less view of the paper. And so that makes it easier for them to do one thing at a time rather than seeing the whole paper and being overwhelmed on where to start. So you can either fold it, you can fold it up instead. Maybe you want to do one row at a time. Maybe you even want to fold it in half. And then in half again. So that way all they can see is one picture at a time. And then you would turn it over, same thing. This gives those students who may have trouble seeing the full paper a little bit of a more concise, limited view, and could make it to where they're less overwhelmed. So another way you could use paper is simply by just taking another sheet of paper and covering it up, which is a little bit harder sometimes whenever you're trying to work with a student and also move the paper, but there are options there. Another tool that can be used in the classroom are communication boards. These are great for your students that may have learning disabilities or language delays, students with autism. Those kinds of disabilities really benefit from core boards or communication boards like this. So you could use these as snack. You could use these just during any assignment really throughout the day, but specifically snack time. So you could have one of these in front of the child and they would point to, I want more. You could also cut these out and have them as individual pieces and use a Velcro strip. And so what they would have to do then is grab each individual piece. So they would grab I, then they'd grab want, and then you could have a picture of the specific snack. So they could say, I want cereal, that gives them the option to communicate with you in their own way, and they're still, you know, being independent and being part of the snack time routine. This is another communication board called a fringe board. This one just happens to be colors. So this could be used at art time. Maybe you're doing an art project where the students get to pick what color they would like to use. So those students who don't have the language quite yet, or may not develop that language, the expressive language, they could point to what color they would like to use as a way of communicating and participating in the activity. So those are just 3 ways that you can use low-tech assistive technology in the early childhood classroom.